What you do about your health and fitness today doesn't really matter. I know that sounds a little bit surprising, a little bit controversial here on the Begin Within Health show, but let me explain. I think this is an important conversation to have. Welcome back to the Begin Within Health show. As I always am, I am pumped that you are here. I'm so glad to connect with you. If you haven't done so already, please go check out my website, beginwithin.fit. Learn more about what it is that I do on a day in and day out basis, supporting the clients that I'm working with. Go check it out. Learn a little bit more, beginwithin.fit. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe or follow the show on YouTube or your podcast player. And if you wouldn't mind commenting, rating, and reviewing the show, whatever you can do on your player to interact with this show, to, again, communicate with me, tell me you like the show, tell me what you don't like, give me some ideas for future guests, just say hi, whatever you can do. It helps others to find the show and have a little checkpoint in their week on their health and fitness journey as well. So please rate and review the show, subscribe or follow. I appreciate it so much. Now let's dive into this concept of what I believe is a fact. What you do today with your health and fitness doesn't really matter. I know you're thinking, wow, that's pretty bold of you to say on a health show when we're talking about action. Stick with me here because I think while the statement is true, there's some important pieces of it that I want you to understand. That concept, hey, today doesn't really matter, is one that I've noticed for myself. It comes up often, and I'm going to explain how that is and why I think it's actually a healthy thing to acknowledge. But at the same time, there are some important things about today that we need to acknowledge on our health and fitness journey as well. Before we dive in, please remember, I say this often, but please keep this in mind. Health is nuanced, it's personal, it's something that is built over a lifetime. So, what we're going to talk about today is just one little topic, one little piece in the mindset, I think, of this whole process of health, of fitness, of wellness, whatever you want to call it. But I think this is a place where we can be honest about the journey, honest about the ups and the downs, and honest about the successes and the little failures, if we want to call them that, the little setbacks, and kind of what goes on inside our heads when we go through those times, both good and both bad. So let me start with this as we are talking about this phrase, what you do today doesn't matter. Let me tell you about the truth that is behind that, as far as what I have found, what I have learned for myself, for my clients, the research that I've done. What I mean by that phrase, today doesn't really matter, is that one workout doesn't make you fit. One salad doesn't make you healthy. At the same time, one bad day of eating, one piece of cake, one snack on a road trip, one Pepsi, Mountain Dew, whatever, one I'll start Monday dinner, right, on a Friday night or Saturday night, doesn't make you unhealthy either. Results in this process, health and fitness, are entirely a product of what you consistently do over time. We've talked about that here on the show. And that's just physiology. Your body doesn't read your calendar. It doesn't know that it's Monday. It doesn't know, hey, today's the day we're going to have broccoli at dinner, but the rest of the week, maybe not, right? It just uses what you give it, and it responds to what is happening consistently. The way I think about it is this: it responds to what you do at most meals. It responds to what you do most days, most of the time, over weeks, months, and years. And so this is great. This today doesn't matter. This is a great concept when life gets messy, when a meeting runs late, your kids are sick, when you're sick, when whatever you had planned completely falls apart. There's something liberating in remembering that this one day or this one meal, this one snack, this one piece of candy or whatever, it's not going to define your outcome. Your whole trajectory of health and fitness isn't made by just one single decision in isolation, right? And for me, that's where this concept comes from of one day doesn't matter, one meal doesn't matter, is when I'm in those situations, and maybe it's like a celebratory event, some opportunity. Maybe it's a cocktail that a friend offers me, or in Wisconsin, we have this thing called Friday night fish fry. Maybe you've heard me rant about that before. I love it. But it's these opportunities maybe to have a little bit of fun, or maybe when life gets messy, things you didn't expect to come up, emergencies, or just you're not feeling it for one day, for one reason or another. It is something I say to myself to take a little bit of the pressure off of trying to be perfect, because I don't believe perfection is a healthy thing, especially with health and fitness. So it takes a little bit of the pressure off. And I mean that sincerely. A lot of people quit because they had one bad day and they think, I'm just going to throw in the towel. I can't do this. I'm no good. I'm addicted to junk food, or whatever the phrase is that they tell themselves as a reason to quit. If you can hold on to the idea that a day is just one data point, for me, that's reality. I think that's a healthy perspective to have. But at the same time, why it becomes such a shocking concept in the health and fitness world is that many people don't ever get to that point where they can experience that concept of today doesn't really matter in a liberating way. And I think it comes down to what they're measuring. Okay? It's the scoreboard that they might be looking at is a little bit of the wrong place to focus. Uh, it might be something like this. They step on the scale every morning and maybe they track yesterday's calories, for example, a couple of different scores they're looking at, right? And then they judge their progress based on those numbers. So if they overate the calorie number that they were shooting for, failed, can't do this. Or if they hit the calorie number, then they step on the scale the next morning and it didn't move, or it didn't even move in the direction they wanted. It moved in the wrong direction when they felt like yesterday I had it all perfect. I did it. It was dialed in. They conclude that something's wrong. This whole process isn't working. Now, I'm not advocating for counting calories or, obsessively tracking body weight. If you've been around here, you know that's not me at all. That's not the process that I like to follow at all, and not one that I encourage my clients to do. But understand that the scoreboard that many people are looking at with their health and fitness, it's just a snapshot. It doesn't show you a whole pattern. There's a lot of things going on inside our bodies beyond calories, which counting calories isn't always all that accurate anyway. Stepping on the scale is not an accurate measure of health and progress anyway. And so those scoreboards that a lot of people are tracking, they don't show other ways that the body might be changing, other improvements in health, the fact that habits are slowly becoming more a part of life, the fact that their brain is changing over time. And I'm gonna get to that one in a little bit as well. Talk more about that. So what's the scoreboard that they should be watching? The scoreboard that kind of allows this today doesn't really matter mindset to be liberating when it needs to be. It's the scoreboard of consistency over time. It's the scoreboard of, did I do it most of the days this week? Did I eat this way most of my meals? Not, did I work out today? Did the scale drop today? that scoreboard of consistency over time means much more and tells a much more honest story. You could think about it like the stock market. We're looking at trends over time, right? A big day, one way or another, doesn't really matter, but it's the trend over time that we're interested in, and it's health and fitness, right? A big loss, a big gain in one day, so what? It's a consistency over time, the general trend that we're heading in. That's what we're interested in. That's where health comes from. And so looking at that zoomed out, right? That line, as long as it's headed in the direction that we want it to be, keeps us from catastrophizing one single day into evidence that the whole thing isn't working. I'm on the wrong track, because it is working. If you made decisions that you know are making you healthier, then you're headed on the right track. Just, you might be looking at the wrong scoreboard. That's all. The scoreboard of consistency over time is the one that we're interested in. So that's why I say, and that's why I use that phrase in my own mind when life gets messy or when there's a celebratory event. Hey, one day doesn't really matter. We can do this without feeling guilty, without throwing in the towel completely, without quitting. It doesn't mean I quit if I have a little fun right now. It doesn't mean I quit if I'm feeling sick today. But this idea of one day doesn't really matter could also, right? It could be a trap. It could be a little bit tricky. The same idea, today doesn't really matter, is exactly the same sentence that might keep people stuck for a long, long time. Because today I eat whatever I want, right? Oh, today doesn't really matter. Well, guess what? Tomorrow's when I wake up, it's today. And I could say, today doesn't really matter either. And so then tomorrow doesn't really matter. And the day after that doesn't really matter. And I could keep saying that every day until next Monday, or until the 1st of next month, or until January 1st of next year, right? So it could be a trap. It can be a little bit tricky. So one day of grace can turn into a lifestyle of avoidance, right? Not because someone's necessarily lazy or doesn't have willpower, but because the logic of this process could be genuinely seductive, right? To just say, "Hey, I'm gonna fall into this trap again. Today doesn't really matter. Tomorrow doesn't really matter." So I hope that nobody dropped off after the first few minutes of the podcast and was like, "Great, that today doesn't matter. I'm gonna do whatever I want today and tomorrow and the day after and the day after and the day after," right? The concept sounds reasonable. It sounds patient. It sounds friendly to maybe our inclinations that we want to follow in the moment. But of course, we have to understand that there's a balance here, right? Yes, one day doesn't transform your physical results, but what you do with today still makes a difference in your health and fitness journey. So to say it doesn't matter, maybe that's not entirely true. In terms of those big health and fitness results that we want, those are built over time. And that's the concept that we're after. And we want to give ourselves a little bit of grace when we need it, knowing that that one decision that might be less healthy is not going to break the whole journey either. So, in all fairness, let's do this next. Let's talk about what today actually does. Let's talk about what is happening behind the tangible physical results that we don't see when we follow through most of the time, most of the days. Let's talk about the neuroscience behind the big results that is happening when we follow through most of the time. It's something that I really want you to understand, and it is the place where all real changes come from. Even if today's workout doesn't physically change your body, it changes your brain. Every time you follow through on what you said you were going to do, every single time that you follow through, your brain lays down a little bit more of a neural pathway. I want you to think about it like a path through a field, right? Tall weeds and grass. Walk through it one time, it barely noticeable that you went through it, right? At all. But when you go through it again, you maybe can, hey, I think this is the path that I took last time, right? And you can follow it, kind of. And then the next time you're like, oh yeah, I can see where I went those previous couple of times. And again and again and again, the more times you travel it, the easier it is to find that path. And pretty soon it almost becomes a permanent fixture in that field, right? Now, this is happening inside our brain. There are pathways that connect the cells, and each time that we connect them, each time that we take an action, even if it feels a little bit difficult, it's rough to do it, we are laying down that path a little bit more firmly. And um, scientists have called this myelination. Myelin, it's a coating around the circuits that connect the neurons that makes that connection faster. It fires faster. And the more times that we require our brain to fire through that pathway of brain cells, the more of that myelin kind of enwraps that circuit so that it can run more efficiently each time that it does. And so it actually does become easier. That example I gave you of that path through the field, that is really happening inside your brain. Every time you show up, every time you make the healthy choice, every time you prep your food and you reach out of the fridge to get one of those little containers that you have all set to go, you're myelinating. You're making that habit stick a little bit more sure, and it's going to take a little bit longer for that pathway to completely, disappear, to become, back to that field example, to become overgrown again, right? So if tomorrow I don't go down it, doesn't mean that the third day I won't be able to find it again. And then if I go down that path again tomorrow, or the third day and the fourth day and the fifth day, right? But the sixth day, maybe I don't take it again. It doesn't mean the seventh day I can't find it, right? Does that make sense? That is, as far as we can tell, literally happening inside our brains in this process of myelination. When we do it, we make it easier to do it again next time. So the point I'm making is that when you show up on a hard day and you do the workout, even though it wasn't your best, you didn't just burn some calories. You didn't just maybe build some muscle. You reinforced the identity of someone who shows up. You made it easier the next time to show up. You made the healthier decision slightly more likely because you did it today. And of course, when you don't show up, when you didn't do it, you skipped the meal prep, you ordered out instead of having the meal that you had prepared in the fridge. It's not a disaster. It just means that maybe the pathway is going to be a little bit harder to find next time, but it's not lost. We're not starting from scratch the next day. And that's why consistency over perfection is the actual game. It's not about intensity either. It's about showing up repeatedly and building that neural groove until being healthy just feels like that's who you are. That's what you do. Every time you do it, even though you might be doing it kind of against your inclinations, it's going to become easier to do it the next time until it feels like who you are. It just becomes easier and easier and easier every time you do it. And so that idea, it becomes who you are. I want you to sit with that for a second, because that's the thing that nobody really ever talks much about. Maybe we're starting to talk about it a little bit more than we did in the past, and we really should. You start doing the things that a healthy person does, even though you don't call yourself a healthy person at first. It doesn't feel like you, right? There's a gap between the behavior and the belief. You're going to the gym, but some part of you doesn't feel like a gym guy, certainly not a gym rat. You're eating better, but you still feel like you're playing dress up in someone else's lifestyle, like you're really having to force it. This isn't really me. That's just what new identity feels like. That's just the way that it goes for everyone when they're trying something new, when they're doing things differently than they've done them. It feels uncomfortable. It feels awkward. You're doing the things before your brain's fully kind of caught up and filed it under the new category of your identity. You're building the pathway through the field that we talked about before. You're actually walking through it the first few times, and it's just like, is this where I stepped? Is this where I go? Is this how this works? But the trail is forming behind you. The next time you do it, it's gonna be a little bit easier to navigate through that same path, even though ahead of you it just looks like a bunch of weeds, right? But then one day you're not even expecting it, and it's like, oh, this this shifted. This feels more like me. This feels normal. The good choice, the healthier choice, maybe feels like a little less of a decision and just like an automatic thing, more of a default, less friction. That's what we're after. That's where we want to be. That's identity catching up to the behavior. And it's going to happen. It is going to happen for you if you stay at it long enough and you just do it most of the time long enough without worrying about being perfect all the time. So, see the balance we have today. It doesn't really matter in terms of those big results that most people are after with health and fitness, but today does matter when we think about building that identity. Maybe a better way to say it is that most todays matter. So, how do you know which one to choose? How do you know which lens to use? Is today a day where, today doesn't really matter? Don't worry about it. Or is today a day of like, I'm going to stick to it. I'm going to find my way through the path. I'm going to build this identity a little bit stronger today. I don't want these to blur together. I think for me, I use them in very different moments. And that's what I'll kind of break down for you, and I'll encourage you to do the same. That first idea that today's actions don't determine your results. Then that today doesn't matter perspective, that's true. Results come from the pattern, not the day. And then that second idea, today absolutely matters for your brain, your identity, your momentum. It is also true. So how do you know which one to reach for? Here's how I think about it. Reach for the today doesn't matter when something genuinely outside your control took over, right? Your flight was delayed, your kid was sick, you had a work emergency, a celebratory event, Friday night. In those moments, giving yourself grace isn't weakness. It's just being true. It's being logical. It's being accurate. Hey, today doesn't matter. One derailed day within a strong pattern, it's a blip. Just let it be a blip without this big guilt spiral, right? Just shrug it off. Hey, today doesn't matter. And maybe another time to reach for that, today doesn't matter, is when you've been consistently not following through and the target maybe that you've been reaching for is too big. You keep missing the target. And the answer isn't like hunker down, my identity depends on this. It might just be, hey, today, you know what? I'm going to change things up. I'm going to shoot for a smaller target. Make the goal embarrassingly easy. A 10-minute walk instead of an hour-long lifting session in the gym. Right? One good meal instead of a perfect day. Order the side salad instead of the fries. Scale down until you can actually hit it, because a small win is more valuable than the big perfect day that you might have been going for. So hey, today doesn't matter. This meal matters. Today this huge getting this big heavy workout in with all the dumbbells and the barbells and stuff. It doesn't matter. But let me just move my body. Let me just take a walk, right? Using it in that context that today doesn't matter, it means today's specific plan doesn't matter as much as showing up. Okay? Now, that's the today doesn't matter. Those are the moments to use that. The other side is the today is an opportunity, right? We want to use that every other time. When the choice is available to you and you're deciding whether or not to take it, when it's inconvenient maybe, but not impossible, when you're tired, but you're not depleted, when the easier path is right there, but maybe the slightly harder one, the slightly healthier one is also right there. In those moments, remember, your physical results, they may not change today, but your brain is watching. Your identity is being written. There's myelin available that's ready to be laid down in those circuits. The path through the field gets a little clearer or a little more overgrown based on what you do right now, what you do today. And that's not pressure, that's just the truth. Okay? And it's really good news because it means every ordinary moment is quietly working in support of you. If you let it, if you seize it, if you use it, and you understand what it could actually be accurately, what it can be. Here's a concept I want to just drop for you before we wrap up. It's this. If one day isn't going to make or break, but skipping entirely carves out the wrong path through the field, what do you do? Try this. What I'd love for you to do is put some thought into what a good enough day would be. The idea is this. On the days when the full planning isn't happening, you don't go down to zero. Don't go down to absolutely nothing. Define in advance what the good enough day looks like, okay? The minimum that still counts as showing up. So for some people, instead of the workout, right, it's a 10-minute walk. For others, it's just like, I'm just going to drink enough water today. I'm going to get to bed at a reasonable time. I'm going to eat a square meal. I don't know what else is going to be on that plate, but I'm going to make sure there's some fiber and that there's some protein, right? Those kinds of things. It gives you those kind of bare essentials, even if the rest of the day is chaotic, to hang on to. It might not be the great day that you planned for, but it's also not an absolute zero, right? I didn't do anything. I didn't even try. It gives you some easy wins so that you know you still showed up today and took care of your health. And I think on this concept of today doesn't matter, I think the takeaway I want to have you here with is that the gap between the good enough day and the zero day is humongous. It might feel like the gap between the perfect day and the good enough day is humongous, but actually the bigger gap is between the good enough day and the zero day. And it might not be in terms of like, calories burned or I hit my macros or I saw the scale majorly change, but it's enormous in terms of what it means to your brain and to your identity. It tells yourself, you tell yourself, I'm still in this. This is still who I am. Zero says something different. So before life throws the curveball, and it will, decide right now, what does your good enough day look like? What are maybe 3 things that your good enough day would include that you feel really confident you'll be able to get done even on the most chaotic day? Make it embarrassingly achievable things that are going to still move you in a healthier direction. It becomes like your anchor on the difficult days. And if you find out, hey, I didn't do them, I thought, when life got chaotic, I'd do the good enough day thing and I didn't do them, just make them easier next time. Try again. but make sure that you're still showing up. So here's where we land, right? Today might not change your body. It's not going to transform your results in one day. That is absolutely true. But today will always have an impact on your brain, your identity, and how easy or hard tomorrow is going to be. The danger isn't in knowing this. It's not in knowing that one day doesn't really matter. The danger is using that truth as a reason not to act. Because all those, it's just today doesn't really matter, right? They end up stacking up into a pattern if we're not careful. And it's a pattern of avoidance. It's a pattern of not showing up. It's a pattern of you not being the person that you want to be ultimately. And your brain is noticing, your brain's recording, right? It might be myelinating the circuit you don't want it to be myelinating, right? So watch the right scoreboard, and it's your consistency over time. It's not today as a single snapshot of I am amazing or I am terrible, right? Know which perspective to reach for when it comes to understanding, how important today is. Either it doesn't really matter, or today's a big opportunity to show up. And don't forget to define that good enough day. Now, before we wrap up, I want to give you one more thing that I really think helps me in this whole process of being consistent. And I'm going to share that with you. But again, I want to encourage you to go check out my website, beginwithin.fit, get some more info. Click on the button there on the site to book a call. You're going to go right into my personal calendar. You and I can have a talk about how things are going for you. I'm happy to share whatever I can to support you. All right. So let me share that one more thing that really has helped me when it comes to taking action today, and something you can do today to encourage yourself to follow through. That is to find a one and done action that you can take to support your future self. Okay? So here's what I mean by that. Don't rely on your willpower to do everything all the time from scratch. Okay? Set your environment up to make the healthiest decision easier for yourself. And what I mean by a one and done action is that this is something that you do now, and ideally it changes your environment as permanently as possible to set yourself up for success in the future, right? So maybe it's deciding to put your gym bag somewhere else where it's going to be impossible to avoid it, right? This is the new place I store it. Or do that with your running or your walking shoes. Maybe it's something like getting some new food prep containers that you really love using, right? Something like that. Which is like, oh man, I want to do my food prep because I want to use those things. Maybe it's signing up for a class that's going to support your workouts. Maybe it's getting a coach, or if you're one of my beautiful clients that I'm working with, maybe it's going in right now into our calendar to book your weekly coaching session, our Monday Healthy Habits coaching sessions that we do. Get those booked for the next few weeks. Doing something right now that is going to make following through in the future easier. It's one decision you make today. It's not something you have to replicate every day to support your health. There's plenty of those decisions out there. But take one today that's going to help you follow through in the future. Find your one and done decision that you can take. Okay? One structural change, one thing that makes future you's environment a little bit easier place to do the healthy thing. Okay? I know we talked about a lot. I want to thank you so much for being here and talking about how today matters, or maybe how today doesn't really matter. Remember, your health, it's personal. Notice what works for you, adjust as needed. And keep taking good care of yourself.